Hi, I'm Mike from Pitch Black. We're a New Zealand electronic group who sort of specialise in live multimedia. We release records and we're a full sort of multimedia interactive outfit, so we always incorporate video with our sets, which has been a bit tricky on the Big Day Out tour because it's been so bright. But normally we're playing with full motion video, streaming off computers in sync with the music, and as we generate the songs in real time on stage, the video sort of tracks along behind it and shifts. And we've got quite a few bits of audio coming off the actual streaming video as well, and that's sort of what we're going to develop the whole multimedia show further and turn it into a real sort of organic experience.
So did you create that program yourself?
We have a technician called Ross who we've been developing sort of interactive video for the last sort of 7 or 8 years, trying to turn the analog world into something that can be manipulated in real time by creative people. So whether that's us or other people we work with, artists, sort of being able to shift digital media via human creativity is sort of the basis to the program.
When we talk about the kind of music that you do, you're always focusing on the fact that it's live. A lot of the music that came off of your album was created live and then brought into the studio, and then it also has a life of its own when other people are performing it.
Yeah, well, I guess when you sit in a studio, you're separated from the sort of dance floor or the live environment. A lot of electronic music gets made closeted away in the studio, and then it goes out and it's finished and structured, and sometimes you end up with just going off on the wrong tangent and the audience won't go with you, and you're trapped into a finished edit of a song and you can't get out of it, or you just got to suddenly crash to a halt and go to another one. We try and keep the whole system completely open so that if it's really going off, we can make a song an hour long if we want, or we could play the same pattern for a week, or we try and keep the whole system really open so that we can respond as much in real time to the audience as possible. Try and maximise the sort of creative live experience.
So while some of the music might already have been created, every time you're hearing it, it's completely new because you're...
Yeah, I mean, the songs that have been played quite a few times have settled down into their own form. Some of the tracks on the record, we took like live versions of that we knew had really worked, that the structure had been really good. We sort of laid that into the computer system, and then we sort of remade it, got all the bits and made it to fit that particular structure, because that was a particular structure that had worked particularly well and made sense.
What's the reaction been like on this tour?
Australia, on this tour? Well, Auckland was incredible. The huge dance tent, the boiler room was the biggest it's been in the whole country, in the whole tour, and it was absolutely packed, and this was just people know the music, and we hadn't really played for 6 months. We'd had some time off to do some Millennium jobs and stuff. Just totally went off. It was fantastic, and Brisbane was interesting. It was early in the day, and they were sort of sitting around tapping their feet and cruising, and then partway through the 4th song, right on the beat, the whole tent blew up. So that was it. On the beat, got a few claps, and then Sydney was fantastic. Yeah, the audience were really up for it. The DJ before us got them all bouncing and got them going, and we came on straight in. They just stayed on the dance floor, and that was cool. And did a little club show called a club called Kooky. That was really nice. Just underground, 1 in the morning, just chill little club, doing some really chill beats, which is nice. And today was interesting. I like the classic semicircle in front of the groups, not being able to breach the front,
The question I often wonder about artists like yourselves who are doing it live, do you prefer to be in a large concert environment, or do you prefer the party scene?
I think intimacy with the audience is the most enjoyable, whether you're on a stage or whether you're hidden away. If you're actually in touch with what the audience is hearing and how they're experiencing it, that's the most enjoyable. And sometimes you get that on a big stage and sometimes you don't. Sometimes you get it in a small environment, sometimes you don't. It's sort of, you can never really pick when it's going to go, and it's really hard when you're trying to, you try and work out, well, we're trying to make people dance, we're trying to make them have a good time, or, and just sort of working out. And sometimes you end up in the wrong place at the wrong time, and other times you end up in the most amazing place at exactly the right time.
But that's part of the beauty of it, that it's absolutely live.
Yeah, and I think there's different ways you can go. You can just go totally banging, or you can go totally absolutely ambient. And if the environment's nice, in theory you should be able to go to all those places. And if the audience are really sophisticated and are up for some really creative music, then they'll go with you. They'll let you go completely ambient, and they'll just hang around and just move slowly. And then as you build it up again, they'll all get going again, and that's really exciting. But there's not many audiences understand that. I don't know if the people in Brisbane did or not. They were sitting around tipping their feet, but yeah.
Do the audiences in New Zealand understand that?
I think it's the other thing. So when you know the music, you understand it more. So we can play almost anything in New Zealand now that we've been playing there so much and get away with almost radical stuff that we just couldn't do here. But having played at Kooky, we could go back to Kooky in 3 or 4 months and do something completely alternative, and I think they'd go with us.
Tell me about the New Zealand scene. What's happening there in live electronic music?
Well, it was interesting actually. About a year ago, it really felt like the live thing was really going to take off, and then all of a sudden it sort of stopped. And people started to just burn their stuff to CD, and I think the effort of taking all the gear out, I don't know, something happened. I haven't quite managed to work out what it was that actually seemed to stop it happening. There were a couple of clubs closed that were really helping make the scene grow, and they disappeared, and I think it sort of pushed everything back a bit. There's a pretty healthy scene. There's a label called Cog Transmissions, and they're on the web. There's probably a link from the site. They're releasing regular releases every 2 months, and they've got a very wide and broad take on music. Anything from totally sort of strange alternative dub right through to absolute industrial techno, through to some pretty ambient stuff, through to house. And they've just been picked up by the Siren distribution label in Australia, so they're starting to sort of move their product out. Yeah, but it's good. And in New Zealand, because the audience is a bit smaller, people tend to be a bit broader in what they make, and sort of to be able to get a few more people in the door.
There's more diversity, you think, in New Zealand than in Australia?
Yeah, I think a little bit. I mean, I don't know Australia very well, but it seems that you can get away with being a little bit more sort of loose in your style and still get a really good audience, whereas here it's a bit more specific as to a genre. Yeah, you get people going to see stuff. Maybe not so much in Melbourne. Melbourne seems pretty creative. More in Sydney, I think. Like people will go to something because they know that that's what it is.
Should we take a second and see if we can get musical electron herder is the way that you've been described. I'm really curious about that. Can you explain how you've gotten this name?
Oh, it's something I sort of came up with because it's a bit of a self-deprecating kind of a line for someone that, you know, I was trying to sort of do it tongue-in-cheek as being someone that's anti-musical and just, you know, I mean, I do make music, but ultimately all you're doing is pushing electrons from one box to another, and eventually that turns into sound. But it's sort of, rather than saying programmer or something, so that's the origin of that.
The electron herder.
Restate it.
The next question is, when you guys are playing live, because your music is predominantly live electronic music, you've also mentioned that you like the fact that the music evolves through other people that are remixing your music. Can you talk about some of the groups that you've asked, or producers that you've asked to remix you?
We reissued our album about 6 months ago with a bonus disc of remixes just from people around Auckland that we like, people whose gigs we've been to, and we like their aesthetic and their music, and you know, they're all friends of ours as well. Epsilon Blue is a guy called Leighton. He did it. He did 2 remixes under Epsilon Blue and Rota, and one's sort of I suppose medium tempo techno, and the other's a very beautiful ambient piece that we put on last on the remix disc. International Observer is 2 people, Rakai Kanaitiana and Tom Bailey, and they do beautiful long dub sound system sets where they burn their own stuff, submixes to CDs, and then DJ them in off about 4 CDs, and we really like what they do, and they did a mix. And a young guy, Hayden Shelley, who's a nutty, bald-headed 20-year-old drum and bass producer, did a drum and bass mix of one of our tracks as well.
Yeah, the only sound left from one of our songs is a tiny piano that the song ends with.
So they've just completely recreated.
Yeah, that's right.
So it's the evolution of the song itself. Yeah. It's got a life of its own.
Yeah. Also, it was interesting because we've got such a style. All the people took our sounds but not our style and did remixes in their style. It was quite interesting hearing stuff where they didn't take our processing and our dub processes, so they just took the bits of sound and made their own style to it. It was quite interesting sort of to listen to tracks that you knew really well and hear them done in a completely different style.
Fantastic. When people talk about New Zealand at the moment, the thing that they keep reiterating is that there's a great energy there, that it's one of the most optimistic and positive places predominantly in the music.
The Prime Minister is the Minister for the Arts
in New Zealand.
Yeah, so person at the top's in charge of all the creative arts money, and they're just going to add millions to the arts budget after years of it being stripped out. So there's a real buzz in the creative community.
And what have you got planned for the year 2000 yourselves? What are you doing?
We're closeting away ourselves in the studio from March, April, May to come up with a new album. This is going to be a bit different from the way we did the last album, in that everything was written to play live first and road tested. But this will be basically go into isolation. We've saved up our gig fees and that sort of thing, and we don't have to work for 3 months. So we're going to just lock ourselves away and hopefully pop out with an album at the far end. But that's going to be quite interesting because the methodology is so different. It's definitely going to be sounding different. We have no idea what we're going to come up with.
So as yet you have no idea what you're going to be doing.
No.
It's just you're going to go in there and you're going to create.
Yeah, maybe do a few special little shows with some extra speakers and just get a few people in and watch when their feet stop moving. Just go, oh yeah, well that song needs to be pushed in that direction there, or it's getting okay, or it's moving okay. Just sort of experiment to be full time for 3 months, which we've never done before, and treat it as a completely 100% committed process.
When you take your live show out, because it's multimedia, because you've got the visual and you've got the live, what would you say in your experience has been the most memorable type of a gig that you've done?
Most of them. They're all so different. It's crazy. Sometimes the video totally goes off, sometimes it doesn't because it's daylight. You know, sometimes it's crazy. You just never know if you're gonna. You go on feeling great and you walk off feeling like shit, or you go on feeling like shit, you walk off feeling great, or you have all those emotions 10 times in the middle of a set. I mean, it's impossible to gauge, and you've got no idea how other people are experiencing it either. People come up to you and go, wow, it's amazing, it's the best thing I've ever seen, and you're feeling like a piece of shit because you've just done something that you hated. It's crazy. It's just impossible to actually know but I think that's the intimacy. If the audience is intimate and they're with you, that's when it's good. But anyone will tell you that in the music industry.
Yeah. Is there a lot of support in Australia, not in Australia, in New Zealand, with majors as well, supporting electronic music?
Not really. They're all getting a bit curious now that sort of a few groups are selling a few thousand here, a few thousand there. They're definitely sort of starting to feel threatened because sort of worldwide the majors up until a few years ago had monopolies on both production and distribution of music. Now with bedroom studios and things, they only have a monopoly on distribution, and that's fading fast. So I think they're all a little bit nervous and scratching around and trying to find what their place is going to be. You know, now they're all amalgamating with the net companies and other media companies to become more delivery systems rather than developers. So more and more people are just entering into distribution deals with majors and saying, well, we'll just give you our finished CD, you have no meddling in it, you just get it in the shops, and we'll make it, we'll be in charge of the creative control.
And obviously that's better for you as an artist.
Definitely.
And short-term contracts, it's great, you know, the deal in Australia is for 6 months. If it works out, it works out. If it doesn't, 6 months, it's cool with both parties. And it means that if it's really good, we can make it more serious. We've got a chance to, you know, not locked into a 5-album deal, which might take 7 years to get out of, by which time the music industry's changed 300 times. It's exciting.
Are you doing any overseas tours this year, other than New Zealand and Australia? Are you looking to host?
Yeah, we've been off in Japan. We're still working that one out. Don't know. Yeah, and ideally, yeah, and maybe something in Europe if we can afford it. Don't know.
Paddy, maybe you can tell us a little bit about some of the solo projects as well that you're working on at the moment.
Well, I've been working with a lot of Polynesian musicians for the last 5 years, sort of scratching around trying to find a synthesis of European dance music and Polynesian dance music that merges happily without sounding like it's tokenistic or being a whole lot of little samples chopped up and dropped over the latest beats. And that's starting to emerge quite nicely. I debuted my solo set at the Gathering this year, and that went down really well with lots of Cook Island log drums and choral vocals, which sort of come up with in collaboration with several artists, and that's been very positive. And the reaction, sort of, it's music that's not intense, but it's powerful. It's still sort of uplifting without being a sort of a downwards ragging by technology on you, so it's been really good.
There's something, the Gathering, I know about the Gathering, but a lot of people don't, and when you're talking about large festivals here, people often look to the concert as the big day out, but the gathering is completely different. Can you explain what the gathering is?
It's perhaps analogous. The gathering is perhaps closest to your Earth Corps parties, where this year was 10,000 people on top of Tākaka Hill, which is in the middle of Abel Tasman National Park at the top of the South Island. It's a 10k one-lane metal road in, and they have 6 zones surrounded by a natural beech forest, and there's all these amazing limestone outcrops and sinkholes, so the landscape itself is quite mind-blowing. And yeah, basically people get along incredibly well. There's a trance techno zone, a drum and bass marquee, house, hardcore, ambient and tribal drumming and sorts of things.
Yeah, no alcohol. And you're 2,500 metres in the air, so you know, and a lot of stuff once you've driven that high and for that long, a lot of the attitude just gets left at the gate.
Fantastic.
And you know, when it gets cold, it gets really cold. When it gets hot, it gets very hot, and it just sort of flattens the deal, and everyone just has an amazing time.
Excellent. Thanks, guys.